Parles-tu français?
¿Hablas español?
Parla italiano.
If you've used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based technique teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world. With lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers, Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/listen. Spelled BABBEL.com/listen. Rules and restrictions may apply.
You look like you deserve a fresh start to the new year, and there's nothing better than a classic California road trip. Everyone at Rush Creek Lodge and Spa at Yosemite is ready to welcome you with open arms and miles of smiles. Rush Creek's the ideal base camp for exploring Yosemite's wide open spaces, breathtaking scenery, and pristine mountain air. Go to rushcreeklodge.com and use promo code CHILL to get half off your third night on winter stays.
Just got a new puppy or kitten? Congrats! But also, yikes. Between crates, beds, toys, treats, and those first few vet visits, you've probably already dropped a small fortune, which is where Lemonade Pet Insurance comes in. It helps cover vet costs so you can focus on what's best for your new pet. The coverage is customizable, sign-up is quick and easy, and your claims are handled in as little as 3 seconds. Pro tip, Lemonade offers a package specifically for puppies and kittens. Get a quote at lemonade.com/pet. Your future self will thank you. Your pet won't. They don't know what insurance is.
How should I die? That was Novak's question to himself. The specimen had cornered him inside of the lab, and it was not a matter of how could he escape. It was a matter of what death would be the least painful. It stood there, staring. Within seconds, this thing would decide his fate. Was this part of its thrill? Watching as it dawns on their prey that there is no escape? Novak could almost see the glint of a smile as it extended its jaw, and out came an even smaller jaw from the middle of its throat. It began to hiss with the slime of 100 snakes, while its multiple jaw lines extended outward like a bullet locking into its chamber. Steam stirred from the bottom of its teeth, its long, metallic teeth. Novak had seen what this thing was capable of, what it had done to his best friend, what was left of his best friend. Novak opted for the quickest way out. He picked up his gun and put a bullet through his brain. Shelton was drenched in blood, not her own. She was frantic. Her whole body was vibrating. She had to fight against the fear which was tearing apart her insides to stay focused on the task at hand. Making contact, sending for help. Her face was being lit up by the flashing red light jumping around the perimeter of the room as the emergency sound system soared like a protective lion. She typed 4 words, over and over. Red alert, send help. Red alert, send help. But the response came back the same every time.
Failure to connect.
Shelton kicked the control center desk as hard as she could and then threw her chair against the wall, cracking its swivel and unlocking the wheels. There would be no help. She knew that now. It was her against the beast. She smashed open the safety glass and took out an axe. He had to get rid of it. The skin, his best friend's skin, which was now on his arms and hands. Carlo was in the shower trying to shed the remaining remnants of his best friend. He had just finished watching his brother in arms convulse until his chest exploded. The blood was beginning to finally wash off. He turned the water pressure up as high as it could be set. The shower was so loud he didn't hear it coming. He didn't see the shadow rising up from behind the steamy screen. It grew so tall that its outline had blocked the bathroom light. Carlo turned. He tried rubbing the shower door to get a better look. At first, it just looked like there'd been some sort of power outage. It wasn't until he opened the shower door that he saw it, standing there. Within half a second, it was no longer the skin of his best friend that was being sucked down the drain. It was his own. Find it before it finds her. That was Shelton's mentality. The personnel intercom had been disabled. Only home base was capable of doing something like that. This thing was being protected by a higher power. All she could do was move through the halls in her bare feet, silently stalking what she'd seen wipe out most of her crew. If she was going to face this creature head on, she would need a suit, something to protect her from all of its hideous possibilities. It wouldn't act as a shield, nothing could. But maybe it would split the difference between death and pain. Right now, that was Shelton's best shot at making it out alive. Pain. Nix was showing Kaylee how to use a gun. An L-42 pulse-action rifle. It was the most powerful artillery on board the ship. Kaylee had never used a gun before. Nix had used them more times than he could count. Half his life had been spent holding large artillery. Kaylee could barely hold it upright. He walked her through the beats using only 2 simple words. The only 2 words she needed. Aim, fire. The suit belonged to Ford. Shelton didn't see what happened to him, but she heard it. That was enough. Ford was below deck working on the escape sub. It had been disabled for reasons that at the time were a mystery. Now, they were clear as day. Shelton was in the control room along with Kaylee, feeding Ford instructions and keeping a watchful eye on the activity around the perimeter. At first, it was silent. Ford seemed to be making progress. Kaylee was monitoring the security cameras, her eyes darting back and forth. Within 3 minutes, Ford had gotten the escape sub back online. And then, there was a beep. Something else was in the room with Ford. Shelton was now putting on his suit for 2 reasons. One, it made him feel as if Ford was still a part of the crew, that the screams she had heard 2 hours ago were from a distant dream, not the screams from her captain of this ship. The second reason was size. His suit was bigger. Maybe it could help. Certainty was dead. All Shelton had now was maybe. That would be enough until she found the creature made of nightmares. Charles was locked in the panic room, alone. He'd done this on purpose, even as Nix and Kaylee were running towards him. He couldn't risk it. That's what he told himself. He couldn't risk waiting. What if it found them before they got to the door? He couldn't take that chance. He had to close the door. He had to. That's what he told himself as he paced around the panic room alone. Better one survivor than none. Plus, he was not equipped to fight it. Nobody was. He knew that better than anyone. He knew that because he knew what it was, what it really was. He was the only crew member on board who was fully aware of its capabilities. If the crew knew what Charles knew, they would have killed him. That was a secret which had to remain as such. It could never see the light of day. At this rate, Charles had to wonder, would anything see the light again? Shelton was on the move. She had Ford's suit and an axe. The artillery room was on the opposite end of the ship. The odds of her getting there before it found her were slim to none, just like her chances of survival. Kaylee was having trouble with the gun. It kept slipping off her shoulder as she followed behind Nix through the halls. The weight, the sweat, the fear. All 3 made it feel heavier than a Mack truck. Nix was moving slow. The blood of the beast had sprayed onto his left leg, and now he was topping out at a leisurely pace. Kaylee was told to periodically glance behind her. She was meant to be the second pair of eyes as Nix led them from the upper level down below. Get to the escape sub. That was the mission. All previous missions were now obsolete. Kaylee could see the strain that Nix was feeling as they walked. He was having trouble breathing. Adrenaline can only take you so far, even for a born and bred soldier such as him. Kaylee did as she was told. When they moved into each new hall, she would turn and make sure they were alone. The ship was big. That's what she told herself, big enough to get there in time before it found them. She was trying to remain alert. Every shadow and whisper seemed to echo and expand by 100. She was shivering, even though the temperature had reached 88. Charles had switched the indoor weather pattern. It didn't like the cold. That's what he told them. As soon as he said it, they knew he was lying. How could something hate the cold if it lived at the bottom of the ocean? Eggs. Everywhere. Each one was nearly 3 feet tall, oval-shaped. The exterior was rough and oily. It had veins, pulsating veins. You could hear the veins turning and chewing. Every inch of this monstrosity seemed to be feeding off each other. Shelton's lab, the place she had called home for the past 6 months, was now covered with eggs. She made a small incision on the closest egg to the door. It hissed. As the split pea soup-colored blood trickled down on the lab floor, she could see the other eggs beginning to shake. They knew. The other eggs could sense that one of their own had been scarred. Shelton looked down. The blood seemed to be burning a hole through the floor. Shelton kicked over the bleeding egg and watched as its acidic inside slowly rolled over to its nearest ally. The blood didn't make a dent. It only seemed to merge and then change colors into something dark and malicious. She had what she came for: supplies and a first aid kit which could be stored in her backpack, enough to make the trip home possible. A new question popped into her head, stopping her from leaving the room. What if these things survived after she left? How could she underestimate them? Not after what she'd seen them do. She couldn't risk it. The world couldn't risk it. She had to do the math in her head. How far was the lab from the sub? If she burned it all down, would she make it to the sub before the fire? As she started to move, she turned. The eggs, they were starting to hatch.
When winter days are shorter and schedules are packed, it's easy for kids to lose focus. IXL turns that winter slump into momentum with a simple, stress-free way to keep skills sharp and stay engaged without adding pressure. IXL is an award-winning online learning platform that helps kids truly understand what they're learning across math, language arts, science, and social studies, from pre-K through 12th grade. With personalized practice, instant feedback, clear explanations, and progress tracking, it's easy to fit into even the busiest week. IXL is used in 96 of the top 100 school districts in the U.S. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now, and listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXLlearning.com/audio. Visit IXLlearning.com/audio to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 45% off with minimum purchase plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
Are you ready to finally make that dream a reality? Maybe it's updating your kitchen, paying down high-interest credit cards, or covering tuition. Your home is more than where you live. It's also your most powerful asset. At Unlock, we make it simple to turn equity into options. With a home equity agreement, you can access cash today without taking on monthly payments. Imagine the freedom to invest in your home, reduce financial stress, or finally start that big project you've been putting off. It's your home. It's your future. Unlock it today. Visit unlock.com to learn more about a home equity agreement. That's unlock.com to learn more.
Terms and conditions apply. Not all homeowners will qualify. Not available in all states. Actor Portrayal. Home equity agreements are offered by Unlock Home Equity Solutions, Inc. In certain states, NMLS number 2657081. Visit www.consumeraccess.org for more info.
Charles could not make contact. Continue with the course. That was the last message he had received from the day before. He was sweating. They had sent this message already. Was there anyone on the other end of this communication? Is he a pawn? Were they lying? Could he trust them? Had he been deceived? Was he expendable? Along with every other member of the crew? They had an agreement. They had a contract. They had a relationship. Time was now running out. Within the hour, those eggs would hatch. How long would he be able to remain safe inside the panic room? They had the finest security systems ever conceived by man, and that thing was treating the ship like tissue paper. It had been able to go wherever it wanted. Nothing can stop it. His eyes were darting back and forth between the various stations. Each one could be monitored from where he sat. He could see Nix and Kaylee walking through the halls, rifles aimed and ready to fire. He could see pieces of Novak's body strewn across the dining room floor. He could see Shelton. She was staring at the camera. She knew that Charles was watching her. She wanted him to watch her do it. He stood up with fear melting through his pores. He knew what he was about to witness. Shelton held up a big bottle of pure alcohol. Then she tossed the glass behind her so it could shatter into 1,000 tiny pieces. "No," Charles whispered. "No, no, 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 no." Shelton held up a match.
Fire! 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 Fire!
Nix and Kaylee stopped. The alarm was blaring and there were now orange bulbs strobing throughout the hall. The intercom kept repeating the same warning in its soothing female voice.
Fire. Proceed to the sub. Fire. Proceed to the sub. Fire. Proceed to the sub. Fire. Fire. Fire.
"Great," Nick said, as if our clock wasn't broke already. "How far to the sub?" Kaylee checked the coordinates on her watch. 6 minutes, she told him. 6 minutes with that thing on the hunt. She told him it was one more level down and then bottom left next to the exercise room. He took off his flak jacket. It was slowing him down. The only thing in either of those pockets were rounds of ammunition. He tucked them into the back of his pants and proceeded to move. "In case you forget to shoot," he told Kaylee, "listen to the intercom."
Fire. 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 Fire.
Charles was watching it burn. All of it. The eggs he had been paid to protect and bring back alive. They were now exploding into blobs of revolting tar. Fragments of what looked like a hybrid between a snake and a spider would burst from the belly of the eggs. These little monsters would sprint around the room while sounds of terror spewed from their terrifying mouths. Charles began to type, the speed of his fingers matching the speed of the fire. "Specimen in jeopardy. Send help. Specimen in jeopardy. Send help." Charles got a response.
Reconnaissance imminent. Stay alert. Reconnaissance imminent. Stay alert.
Finally, Charles thought. He could relax until he heard a scratching at his door. Nix and Kaylee were on the bottom level. The escape sub was not far. But it must know that. It seemed to know where everyone was at all times. It seemed to know what they were thinking before they did. Nix was talking to her, trying to make sure she was behind him. "Hang in, kid. We're almost there." Kaylee told them where to go as they moved. Right, left. They were close. The ship was big, but it wasn't infinite. Not like that thing, which seemed to cover space unlike anything they'd ever seen before. "That's it!" Kaylee shouted. "That's the door!" It was so close they could taste it. Right as they got within 10 feet of the escape sub door, it opened. Reconnaissance. It had arrived in the form of 6 soldiers, dressed in black, holding assault rifles with silencers and red scopes. Every millimeter of their skin was covered in the finest body armor you could find, including their faces, which were shielded by light gray metallic material that enabled Nix and Kaylee to see themselves in the reflections of these soldiers who had arrived as a beacon of protection. One of them spoke.
"Where's the specimen?"
Nix told him that everyone was dead. They would be too if they didn't get off the ship. Again.
"Where is the specimen?"
Nix asked if he had heard what he just said. "Leave now or we all die." It happened so quick, Kaylee almost didn't see it. pieces of Nix's brain were now on her left shoulder. His body dropped to the ground and lay there motionless. She dropped her gun from equal parts fear and surrender. The scopes and lights switched on to Kaylee.
Where is the specimen?
Acid was melting the lock. Charles backed up against the wall. There was nowhere to hide now. The beast was using its blood to burn through the door. Charles took out his taser, the one he had used in order to temporarily knock out Shelton after she found out who he was. Who he truly was. Home base had told him that the taser was strong enough to knock it out, to leave it stunned. But if Shelton had regained full strength within an hour, was it really strong enough to keep it down? No. The door slowly swung open. Charles shot the taser directly towards the mammoth forehead of the beast. It knocked the electrical surge out of the air with its tail, a tail lined with shark teeth. Charles froze for a moment, and then he raised his gun again. The creature knocked it clean out of his hands, stood there for another moment, salivating, before it unhooked its jaw so the other jaw could emerge. Its appetite for violence was so strong that Charles could see its face shaking. Charles put his hands up as he slunk against the wall and slid down. Maybe this thing would understand that he was not a threat. Maybe it would know that Charles was on its side. Maybe it would feel that Charles... It didn't. All it did was rip out Charles' throat while eating both of his eyeballs from his sockets. Charles didn't die. Not right away. It knew what caused death and what caused pain. It seemed to be playing with its food. Charles couldn't scream. He couldn't do anything. All he could do was lay there and pray for a quick death, which would never come. The beast heard a commotion downstairs. It sounded like a group of men. Kaylee was being used as a shield. They had made their way back through the halls until reaching the ladder up to the second floor. As Kaylee reached for the handle, they heard Shelton scream from up above. The guns raised up towards her in unison.
Where is the specimen?
Shelton held up her backpack. I have an egg. Don't shoot. They lowered their weapons before asking again.
Where is the specimen?
The specimen is dead, she said. All that's left is the egg in her backpack. She told them to move away so she could come down safely. It knows you're here. It knows everything. A leader amongst the crew seemed to command them. He motioned with 3 fingers for all of them to step away. Shelton climbed down with one hand as her other hand held the backpack. When her feet touched the floor, a soldier grabbed the backpack. At first she struggled, yelling at them to be careful. The commander knocked his arm away and then told her to hand it over. You don't know what it is, she implored. He raised his weapon, once again, telling her to hand it over. When she didn't immediately comply, he turned his gun towards the temple of Kaylee.
Now.
Shelton gave it to him. He lowered his weapon so that he could set the backpack down. He commanded one of the others to open it. The soldier pointed at himself, questioning why he had been chosen. The commander screamed at his underling to
open the bag, carefully.
The underling swung his gun around onto his shoulder and proceeded to open it, slowly. Once it was open, he backed up quickly. The commander and those around him all aimed their scopes towards the bag, waiting for some sort of movement. He picked it up, immediately noticing the weight. It was light, far too light for what they knew of this thing. He held it by the bottom and then turned it over. All that fell out were medical supplies and snacks. The commander raised his gun and turned towards Shelton.
Where is the specimen?
Right behind them. Only they didn't know it yet. The only people who knew were Shelton and Kaylee, because they had been tiptoeing backwards. They were the only ones who could see that the monster was silently coming down the stairs. The commander saw their eyes. The fear in their eyes as they continued to back up. Their gaze fixed on something behind them. Something big. He turned. Shelton screamed, "Run!" Shelton and Kaylee turned and ran as fast as they could. Rapid-fire gunshots exploded the hallway into an auditorium of fireworks. Screams and limbs filled the air as blood splattered everywhere. They didn't have to turn back to see what was happening. They could hear it. They could hear all of it. And then, silence. The escape subdoor was closed. Shelton and Kaylee were now in their seats. Kaylee strapped in as Shelton entered the coordinates. The countdown was initiated.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
The face of the specimen was now staring at them from outside of the sub. It had opened the ocean floor door. It would be only a matter of seconds until the entire ship combust from within due to the pressure of the water. Shelton got into her seat, strapped in. As they lay next to each other, all they could do was stare up into the eye of the monster, unhooking its jaw and seeming to smile while the sub began to shake until it burst away like a cannonball. They were flying through the ocean towards the surface. Kaylee closed her eyes, trying to remain calm. Shelton never looked away. She wanted to watch it. If this thing could feel pain, she wanted to know. She wanted to feel it. Right as they began to see daylight, it was gone.
You look like you deserve a fresh start to the new year, and there's nothing better than a classic California road trip. Everyone at Rush Creek Lodge and Spa at Yosemite is ready to welcome you with open arms and miles of smiles. Rush Creek's the ideal base camp for exploring Yosemite's wide open spaces, breathtaking scenery, and pristine mountain air. Go to rushcreeklodge.com and use promo code CHILL to get half off your third night on winter stays.
Head to Safeway this week and enjoy these amazing deals. Clip coupons from the weekly mailer or download them from the Safeway app to breeze through checkout. Signature Select chicken, boneless, skinless breasts, thighs, or wings, just $2.99 per pound. And 1 pound Driscoll's Juicy Strawberries, 2 for $4. Plus 10 items for $10, mix and match member price, just $1 each. Selected varieties. See store for full list of participating items. Visit Safeway.com for more details. See you in the aisles.
Grammy Award-winning violinist Joshua Bell returns to the San Francisco Symphony. Experience the power, precision, and passion of one of the world's great violinists. Hear Joshua Bell in Brahms' famed Violin Concerto with the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields. That's Joshua Bell, March 1st at the San Francisco Symphony. Tickets at sfsymphony.org.